Meeting to order. If we can please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to our January 17th, 2024 special meeting, budget workshop for the Milford Board of Education. I expect this will be our last workshop of the evening, of the budget season. I do think we'll be ready to vote tonight. Can we do a roll call, Ms. Griffin?
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Scott Furmender.
Present.
Tracy Irby.
Here.
Tom Kova.
Here.
Lauren Maller.
Here.
Una Petrosky.
Here.
Christina Preet.
Here.
Mike Smith.
Here.
Cindy Wolf-Boynton.
Here.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
10 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. We have public comment at the beginning of this meeting so that the board can hear your comments before we go into final questions and clarifications later on the agenda. So speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with the Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted, and consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment is limited to agenda items only tonight, which is the budget. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board. We welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ms. Preet is our timekeeper, and she will give you a 15-second warning when we're getting to the end. So anybody that would like to address the board this evening, podium is up here. Don't come all at once.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Kanan. I live at 23 Marie Street, Milford, Connecticut. Good evening. I wanted to say that I'm in favor of the 2024-2025 education budget and that I fully support Dr. Katai's vision for our schools, especially when it comes to the mental health of our students. I appreciate that we continue to support the guidance counselors at the elementary school level and the clinical therapists at high schools and middle schools for students who need additional interventions for anxiety, depression, trauma, and more. With these needs increasing at all school levels, it is important that we don't lose sight of the needs at hand, especially with the ever-growing wait list in the community for additional support therapists. We know this is critical to helping our students learn. A friend who couldn't be here for public comment wanted me to pass along her experience. In the first month of school this year, there was language and behavior at her child's elementary school class that wasn't appropriate. Kids weren't sure how to make sense of it, and they were discussing it with their parents who were then hearing about it. The social worker and guidance counselor working together were able to address the class more broadly on appropriate behavior. It didn't bring additional attention to any of the children involved, and the parents felt supported using aligned language at home. She shared that the class and students have moved past this in a healthy way, and the family is grateful to have these critical resources for our children. So I just want to say that as parents, we are eternally grateful for all the work our support staff does, and that they always go and above to offer our kids a safe space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Del Monte and I reside at 86 Walnut Street. I planned on coming to this meeting as part of the PTA Council as I'm president of the PTA Orange Ave, but I found myself wanting to talk about my position in Milford Public Schools. I've been in the district for 17 years, having taught kindergarten for 11 and a half years before leaving the classroom to become a reading interventionist, and now as an instructional coach. I spoke in front of many of you last year about my experiences as a reading interventionist. This year, I thought I would talk to you about my role as a coach. My voice might sound familiar to you. In the December 13th literacy highlight, you actually heard me. You may remember when Mrs. Morrow showed the video of a kindergarten reading a decodable. The coach in the video was me. I had worked with both the teacher and the student in that kindergarten class. This was the teacher's first year in the grade. I worked closely with the teacher at the beginning of the year to launch curriculum, small group, and literacy work choices, all the while engaging with the students and working with them as I support their teacher. See, that's the best part of my job. I still work with kids. Each time I go into the classroom, I engaged with them. whether I'm teaching a lesson or working side by side with teachers while students are involved in a thinking experience or small groups. I build teacher capacity around literacy skills. I literally work side by side with teachers, analyze data, think about what students need, and do side by side teaching. Teachers are understanding the importance of foundational skills and the why behind what we are teaching. They are gaining knowledge of high leverage routines and are making shifts in their classroom that are bettering all their students. I work as a thought partner for teachers when thinking about how to best support their students, and will often go in and model for them on how to do a routine. A huge part of my role this year as an instructional coach is to co-create thinking experiences for kids. In the past, we've used the I do, we do, you do approach where the teacher was the holder of all the knowledge. Now, through learning experiences, the students are engaged in their own learning and often come to their own discovery. They have multiple ways of making their thinking visible. The teacher and I go around together and we discuss what we see the kids doing. We may provide a scaffold, or if needed, or extend their learning by asking a deeper level question. The teacher and I use student thinking and formative assessments to think about what our next instructional move is. I'm proud of the work that myself and the other instructional coaches are doing in Milford Public Schools. We see our kids becoming independent learners who aren't relying on their teachers to have all the answers. We are seeing our youngest students reading, truly reading. The discussions that our upper grade students are having about books they are reading or stories they are writing about all happens because of the high quality instruction that our teachers are providing them. And those teachers are learning those skills all without stepping out of the classroom. Thank you.
Sarah Kaminsky, 141 Cinnamon Road. I'm a product of the school system. I have children here and I've been a teacher here for 21 years, 9 in the classroom and 12 as a coach. I have had to defend my role as a coach to members of our community every single year. To say that I feel undervalued is an understatement. When I first began as a teacher here in Milford, teachers and classrooms were like islands, each having their own vision of learning and what good teaching looked like. There were 0 job-embedded learning experiences. Teachers were without a thought partner, someone there to model, co-teach, and reflect with. There were little to no opportunities for collaboration. You could step into any of our 8 elementary schools and see a vast difference from classroom to classroom. All wheels spinning, but in isolation. Teaching is both an art and a science, one that requires continuous learning, application, reflection, and adjustment. Our district is committed to a model of high-quality instruction requiring all learners, including teachers and students, to participate in cognitively engaging experiences that aim to challenge thinking and move learning forward. This model relies heavily on process of planning, doing, monitoring, and adjusting with continuous feedback throughout, all of which require a coach. MPS considers all adults to be learners. Do we expect a classroom teacher with about 20 students to be able to raise the bar in both content and practice and lift HQI without the support of a coach? Teachers push students to maximize their potential, and coaches are there to do the same for students and teachers. What do coaches do on a daily basis for students and teachers? Coaches analyze student data and plan next steps for instruction. Coaches reflect on instructional moves that yield the best outcomes. Coaches plan and facilitate both job-embedded and professional learning experiences across the district. Coaches act as liaisons between administration and teachers. Coaches model and co-teach whole group as well as small group and individualized learning experiences. Coaches evaluate, create, modify, and support implementation of curriculum that aligns with our model of high-quality instruction. Coaches collaborate with and provide feedback to teachers to promote reflection. Ultimately, coaches are the cogs that keep all wheels moving, but in the same direction towards student growth. Athletes rely on many coaches to help them refine their skills in order to perform at their very best. The average professional sports team has 30 players and carries about 5 coaches. That's a 1-to-6 ratio. In our district, we have 129 K-5 teachers that impact 2,241 students every year, and we have 32 instructional coaches to support both teachers and students. It's a 1-to-74 ratio. Mathematically speaking, each coach impacts 74 learners consisting of teachers and students. How can we even be considering increasing this ratio? One teacher impacts hundreds of children in their career. Each of those children is shaped by their experiences in every classroom. The fact that we're still wondering 15 years after implementing a coaching model if the investment to improve teaching and learning is worth it is very concerning.
My name is Amy Abraham, and I live at 299 High Street. Good evening, Dr. Kataya, Board of Ed members, fellow colleagues, and fellow Milford citizens. In conjunction with living in Milford, I'm also a second grade teacher at JFK, and I'm here to express my thoughts in regards to the importance of continuing to have 4 instructional coaches in each elementary school in Milford. Throughout my 8 years, I've been teaching in Milford across 3 different schools. I have grown tremendously as an educator because of the work and self-reflection I've done with the instructional coaches and because of the progressive professional development that has taken place here in Milford Public Schools. With the support of both the literacy and math instructional coaches, I have refined my teaching strategies that directly impact the learning of my students. However, these last 2.5 years with having 4 coaches, I have become a more effective teacher due to the growth in my instructional practices, coinciding with student benchmark assessments showing growth in math and literacy skills. With having more than 1 coach in each subject area, I am able to plan, collaborate, co-teach, and self-reflect more frequently in greater depth with that coach than I would with only 1 coach. 1 coach would simply be spread too thin to be able to provide this type of collaboration for each teacher. Being able to work this closely with my coaches while having such a positive impact on my students, I believe was what is expected the expected outcome that Dr. Kataya and other instructional leaders in our district believed when they added additional coaches in each building. Not only are our coaches effective in supporting teachers in growing their practice, instructional coaching also secures curriculum equality across 8 elementary schools, supports the development of implementing scientifically research-based strategies, as well as giving teachers the opportunity to further develop their professional skills while impacting student learning. For these reasons and many more that I have not yet stated today, I support having 4 coaches in each elementary school. Thank you for your time.
Do we have other speakers who would like to address the board this evening?
Yeah, I just think so.
Sure.
Justine Hidalgo, 56 Munson Street. So I've heard about the coaches, and I think that that's, I don't know that much about the model, but why we have people supporting 4 coaches for each building. We don't even have 1 art teacher for each building. And that is too much of an ask for the district to support that, but we're supporting 4 coaches for each of our buildings, and I think that's great. I want instructional coaches, but I think that if we're looking at equity, we do have 8.0 phys ed teachers, so we have 1 in each building, but we don't have that for all the specialists. And I think that if you're looking at equity, it's not equal across the schools. There's not equity with art, with materials, with supplies. We heard about the kiln, with commitment to relationships and community building. We don't have that when we're splitting teachers, especially at the elementary level. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board this evening?
Hi, my name is Kara Flannery. I live at 41 North Street in Milford, and I have to admit I have a little PTSD right now from the last time I spoke on this board at public comment when I lost my temper. And I lost my temper over a cut that was made at the Board of Finance level. Cuts to the proposed budget that this board put forward and the overwhelming impact that it had had on our community. And at the time, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I guess this is a conversation our community needs to have. And what it did is it prompted a conversation that was long overdue about the investments that we need to continue to make in education. And in March and April of last year, over 2,000 Milford residents took action in support of the budget proposed by this board, because they felt that it was important that we stick to our priorities, stick to our vision of moving forward, and not be nailed to a number. That it was more important for us to keep doing what we're doing, because this board and this administration have really given us something that was worth fighting for, and they fought for it. So they rallied at City Hall, gave hours of public testimony, wrote letters, signed petitions. So all I ask is of this board, and I'm very, very happy to see that you have, with this budget, that we have been undeterred, and we, the administration is still focused on moving this district forward, focused on the goals and the learning that this community values, not just the residences, but the businesses, our taxpayers, everybody values our schools. And so I just want you to keep doing what you're doing and not be limited to a number. Keep giving us something that's worth fighting for. So, thank you.
Hi, my name's Emmeline Harrigan and I reside at 107 Ornoak Road. I first want to thank all of you for volunteering and actually running to serve in this capacity. You don't have an easy job to do. And I want to thank the administration for really being thorough and really talking about the budget and what it represents. I want to echo Kara's comments a little bit, because I think that I come to this podium with a lot of gratitude. I'm going to be an empty nester household next year. And so in the course of my child's education in Milford, I've seen tremendous growth in terms of what's been provided. And I feel like Milford as a community, in terms of supporting education, has really come a long way in demanding excellence. And I feel like we're on the trajectory to continue to provide that. We knew last year that this was a 3-year contract for our teachers and other employees within the school district, so we knew this was also going to be a very large increase compared to what Milford is used to. However, that proposed increase is appropriate. Teachers, instructional supervisors, everyone within our school building contributes to the experience for our students, whether it's the specials, whether it's the support, whether it's counselors, whether it's cafeteria workers, whether it's custodians. And all of those people have value within our school district. So I applaud you for asking hard questions. I will admit I watched about 2/3 of all of your deliberations. I just couldn't get to all of it. But you know, you really are putting in the work to ask those hard questions. And again, as a resident with an empty nester household, I fully support the proposed budget, and I hope that you approve it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board this evening? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll close public comment then. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to speak, sharing your opinions. We're going to move on with the agenda, which has, I think, one additional question that is outstanding, if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to remind the board that, it's a little highly unusual for us to have a programmatic type of presentation at what is typically a budget discussion. So I'm just hoping that we can try to keep our conversation as tied to the budget as possible. I know with 5 new board members, there's lots of questions, so we'll be a little bit flexible. Dr. Pataya?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Thank you, members of the Board of Education. And I appreciate the time you've allowed us to prepare for providing you more information on coaches, as we discussed last Wednesday, that we would be prepared for that this evening. Actually, I think the board has heard a lot from me on coaches, so I thought enough of that. you need to hear from some of our educators. So I am happy to turn this over to our elementary principal team, starting with Ms. Marzanato. We have about 10-ish minutes of information for you, okay? And there is some slides that you're getting.
You go that way.
Good evening. I am Rose Marzanato. I'm proud to be the principal of Live Oaks Elementary School. I hope you're all staying warm on one of the coldest nights of the year. Thanks for being here. I'm going to take you back in time. I would like to take you on a journey through education through my eyes. I've been an educator in Milford for 26 years. Started out in 1997 as a student teacher at Live Oaks Elementary School. There I am, young me, in the middle of the photo. Funny how life works that I'm the principal now, 6 years later. On the left of this slide, you'll see many things that are sad, things that have happened since 1997. On the right of the slide, you'll see things that I've celebrated or accolades that I've gained, attributes that tell who I am. The story is that nothing is the same as this one snapshot in time. The question is, what have we learned since then? I, for one, am a lifelong learner, as all of my colleagues have committed to be as well. So everything that we do, we take very seriously and we learn from. This study done in 2013 was a review of our work in Milford up to that point. What I want to point out about this slide is that it highlights that about 30% of our elementary students were being pulled from their classrooms, their core instruction, time with their peers and their teachers, to catch up on what they were behind on. Unfortunately, only about a third of those students actually caught up. Those aren't very good numbers. In 2017, there was another study done. As a group of leaders in Milford, we knew that we had to evolve. This study showed that we needed to align our district-wide work. This feedback was hard to hear, but it was necessary. In 2019, a review of our literacy program was done, and we learned that remediation was not working, not only in Milford, but in all education systems. And we learned that a better model around acceleration gave better results. As part of that same review, we learned that our staff lacked coherence. And that meant that in 8 different elementary schools, there could be different things happening within the same use of curriculum on any given day. That also was not easy to hear. How could we get better if we weren't working as a team, fully understanding what each other was doing to do better for our students? In mathematics, in 2019, we discovered that students who were at risk for falling behind were not appropriately supported within our core instruction. That's the instruction delivered to all students in their own classrooms. We needed to do better. So what does this all mean? How does it relate to why coaches are so integral to where we are now? We've learned a lot. We've failed. We've made assumptions to improve. And we have created a unique way to address our needs here in Milford Public Schools. In my 26 years as an educator here in Milford, I've never seen our district better poised to address all of our students than I do right now. We are all here for all of our students. We have a phrase that we like to use. It's called A-OK, all of our kids. We commit to all of our kids and their diverse needs. The best way that we can ensure that all of our kids get what they need is through what we have learned and knowing that it takes time. It takes time to build success. I am not a baseball fan, but here's a baseball fact for you. Those of you that are Red Sox fans, you probably knew this was coming, right? When I said baseball. Some people waited 84 years to see the World Series title return to the Boston Red Sox. It's a lifetime. Some people waited and never got to see it. That's not the kind of time I'm talking about here. Time is our most precious commodity. Just last school year was the first year that we were able to fully implement coaching the way that we intentionally designed it. We use time to perfect what we plan. Look at these facts from a gathering of Connecticut superintendents that made a visit to our district last year. Do you know how vulnerable we were as a district to invite other superintendents to look at the work that we do? But we wanted honest feedback. We wanted to know what else we needed to do to improve. And they gave us honest feedback. Some of the things that we learned, I'd like to call your attention to bullet number 3. Coaches are valuable thought partners. Bullet number 4. Teachers appreciate coaches. And bullet number 7, there's a high level of coherence, something we knew we were lacking. Our goal as educators includes to embody coherence, strive to meet the needs of all of our kids, and to always work hard to create a better future over time. Thank you for your attention. To continue you on this journey, I invite my esteemed colleague, Marissa Akampora, Instructional Supervisor for Equity and Inclusion.
So I want to thank Rose for sharing the history and how we've intentionally evolved, changed, and responded to needs of our students. And then I'd like to throw a little bit on the ground. Check. In fact, she highlighted the reason I'm stepping in right now with the acronym AOK. All our students. All of our kids matter. Traditionally, in systems of education, students who start each school year with an edge based on prior experiences and achievement are therefore most likely to get better experiences going forward. They're disproportionately white, from higher income families, are native English speakers, and considered general education students. Those who start off the year needing access to grade appropriate content, strong instruction, deep engagement, and high expectations are the least likely to get it, often stuck in cycles of remediation. Those students are disproportionately students of color, from low-income families, new English speakers, and those with mild to moderate disabilities or neurodivergent. Students who have limited access to grade-appropriate assignments or strong instruction have fewer opportunities to demonstrate their knowledge of grade-level work, so they're misconceived as low achievers. They will have few opportunities to ever catch up to grade-level expectations. Without consistent opportunities to engage with grade-appropriate assignments and to do the thinking in their lessons and to engage deeply with what they're learning, it is effectively perpetuating the opportunity gap. Our good intentions aside, if we aren't giving all students those opportunities regularly, we are systematically denying them the chance to even try to master the skills that they need to reach their goals. We cannot lean into good intentions. We need to own our impact. That means we must acknowledge the achievement gap is not inevitable. It is baked into a system where some students have more access than others, resulting from the decisions adults make, consciously and unconsciously, about which students get what resources. It is a gap of our own design. In Milford Public Schools, we have a vision for a very different design. Students should have access to grade appropriate content, strong instruction, deep engagement, and teachers with high expectations every day, in every class, regardless of race, ethnicity, or any other part of their identity. To further detail how the coaching model supports actualizing that vision, I'll ask my friend and colleague, Principal Sherrod McNeil, to present our final slides.
Thanks, Marissa. Good evening, all. The diagram on our screens represents the model for our instructional core. It is the interaction of its three components, students, teachers, and content, that enable learning to occur in our classrooms. Our coaching model serves as an integral role in supporting each of these three components. It is my hope that the presence and impact of coaching with respect to the instructional core will become prevalent in the slides to come. Similar slide, different subtitles. Our coaches provide both direct and indirect instructional support for our children. Within the role of student support, they accelerate learning for all students. As the instructional coach, they are consistently building the capacity of our teachers by bridging the gap between our ever-changing curricula and high-quality instructional practices. As a thought partner, our coaches analyze performance data and utilize their content expertise to determine which instructional strategies address students' learning gaps. A lot of content on these slides, but as you can see, this particular role of the coach has the most direct impact on our students. Our coaches perform a myriad of duties every day, from analyzing student grade level and building data, formulating strategic instructional plans to address student needs, pushing into classes to support individuals, groups, and whole grade levels, while simultaneously coaching teachers on how to deliver high-quality instruction. That brings us to the second role of our coach, which is instructional coaching. Our coaches are supporting teachers in delivering instruction that allows students to make their thinking visible, which is in complete alignment with our district's vision of a learner. If you were to walk into our classrooms, you would see a teacher and coach providing side-by-side instruction, which means that the coach is offering feedback to both kids on how they're doing, as well as to teachers as they deliver the instruction. As an aside, all of these interactions are taking place in real time. This is referred to as in-the-moment coaching, as opposed to following up at a later date and recalling the details of what happened during a lesson or an activity. Our coaches are not only experts in content and curricula, but they are experts in how to deliver curricular-aligned instruction with rigor. As I mentioned before, our goal as a district is to create thinking students. In order to accomplish this in every classroom, teachers need to be well-versed in creating thinking tasks and learning opportunities for our students. As thought partners, our coaches engage in the work of supporting teachers to understand curriculum implementation and learning progressions with respect to the learning needs and gaps of their students. The next level of our work regarding instruction would be to utilize our coaching model as the primary driver to implement our multi-tiered systems of support to ensure equitable access to grade level content and thinking experiences. While our coaching model is ever evolving, the one constant that remains is the direct impact that our students have as a result of coaching. We thank you for your time and commitment to this work.
That's all we have.
Questions, board members? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. I think it's really important to look at the fact of how things were not working and the willingness to change the system when it needs to be done. One thing, big thing I'm thinking about coming up with the right to read legislation. I feel that the coaches would be a valuable asset to the buildings, and how would they help implement something that is completely new that we are really kind of moving in the moment with?
I'm going to bounce that to Ms. Morrow.
So the science reading is not new, but teachers' understanding of it is very different across the aid. So certainly the instructional coaches alongside me are an instrumental part of helping to build teacher capacity around the science of reading. Just recently, we met with kindergarten teachers and talked with them about the difference between phonological awareness and phonics. So we really want to build their deep content knowledge of the science of reading so that, as Ms. Akampora and Mr. McNeil said, they can affect all the students in their classroom. That of course means that we're thinking about all 5 areas, but in going back to our literacy presentation, we really think it's important to have those coaches and the roles to build all aspects of the science of reading, and we think that's a really important content piece that all teachers will continue to need as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Are you commenting more?
No.
Okay. On the same idea is that the coaching piece is 2 parts. It's the teacher capacity building and then it's student capacity building as well. One thing we've spent a decent amount of time is talking about professional learning. How does this supplement or replace some of the costs that the district would bear in terms of doing professional learning outside the district to achieve the same results?
I would categorize it as a supplement, and nothing replaces, as Mr. McNeil stated, the in the moment. I'm sure in your line of work, you go out to a conference or a workshop and you are at a hotel and there's somebody speaking and you're fired up and you want to go try something and you go back, and maybe in my career, I wish that person was coming back to my school with me in an attempt to continue to have that person as a thought partner and to show me what you were talking about, help me implement it. And that's exactly what coaches offer, right on, in the spot, in the moment. So to me, it's not an instead of, it's an addition to. It's an enhancement, it deepens the learning. To go and learn about something, but then to go into your own classroom and actually do it, there's a difference. And when you are doing it with your own children, and to have somebody who you trust to talk through that, on how did that work? Can you try it? I want to watch. And there's all of that interaction going on. So systemically, I don't see that as a replacement. I see that as a supplement.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So a couple of questions, different areas. Is there from the descriptions that we've had in this conversation and in previous ones as well, and the experiences shared, thank you all for getting up and sharing. I know it can be nerve-wracking to get up and talk about something that you care so much and that you're doing so much and you've committed so much to, so we appreciate you sharing that firsthand experience with us. I think that is one of the more invaluable learning tools that we have as board members, new or old, so thank you for that. When we talk about the breakdown of instructing both teachers and helping both students, it appears that it is very class by class, situation by situation, what is needed in that moment for those students, for that teacher, et cetera, and what's going on. But is there a target metric behind the scenes from a review perspective, from a personnel perspective,
From a grading of the coach's perspective, that has a targeted breakdown between how that time is divided.
Well, I hope you heard something that was much less spontaneous than what was just described in your comment. I think that there is actually a lot of planful information that was shared on those slides. That there's planful data review, class by class, student by student.
Yep.
There's an actual schedule that coaches have that they create with teachers, with their principal, with one another. We don't grade teachers. I think you use the word grading teachers. I think that what you might mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, how do we measure their effectiveness?
Sure.
Yeah?
Let's start there.
Well, that is directly through what we observe in teacher instructional practices and then student results. So if, I think there was a story in public comment that was told about a brand new teacher to kindergarten, was moved from another grade level, I believe is the story, had never taught kindergarten before, and here you are, ta-da, there's these little people in front of you and this coach is working. I think we get a lot of feedback around the teacher's own perception, teacher efficacy, and then the fact that we have kindergartners in that room reading and it's December. So we have metrics that are both quantifiable like that through students' results, and then there's less quantifiable as far as teacher feedback and self-efficacy. So
I know a lot of everything across the board is very data-driven. Love that. Very quantifiable, very empirical, regardless of the type of data going into it. So there's not a specific target of let's touch the teacher this much, let's touch the kids this much in all of that planning. Knowing that there's more planning, and I don't mean to indicate that it's all sort of fly by the seat of your pants, because clearly there is a lot more planning that goes into that. But in part of that planning, is there a target for touch the teacher this much, touch the kids that much? That's an intentional oversimplification to help get to the question.
I'm looking at my colleagues for some help, but I don't know that we measure humans like that in an educational system. I don't know.
We put them in spreadsheets a lot and we make them down into numbers, so I didn't know if that was maybe another
Well, we
way
take a
that
look
this
at
worked.
students' performance.
Okay.
But just, somebody mentioned in comment that we look at our adults as learners as well. So part of this includes helping teachers along their own professional growth journey themselves. And there isn't a metric to that. There is a teacher evaluation system, but we keep that very far away from coaching. Those are two different worlds in our institution. Coaching is non-evaluative, it is strictly a support. We don't have in any way, teacher A and teacher B needs 50% of your support, and teachers C and D, well, they're better, they only need 10% of your support. There isn't a goal that we focus on kindergarten more than fifth. It really depends on, at Pumpkin Delight, how are the students doing, and the coaches work with the principal on how to deploy their time. And the second layer of that, I think, is at Pumpkin, the teacher new to kindergarten. Well, that's not necessarily a student metric, it's the teacher is brand new to that grade. It's clear she's going to need some support. So I think that there are some internal measures around how students are doing, and the flexibility for coaches to be responsive to that is what we employ. So I don't know if I got around to your answer, but.
You got to it close enough, yeah. That's good, thank you. I think that the idea of where and how the coaches are dividing time among the various audiences and the different groups that they are able to help very much depends on the situation, and I think that's a great element of flexibility that allows them to be more effective and allows them to actually do more and accomplish more in the classes, rather than having a target of you need to spend 60% of time with teachers and 40% of time with kids. Hard stop. aim
There
for
are
that.
coaching
So that's
models
great.
out there that do that, but
Yeah. This doesn't sound like it's one of them.
not lock key,
Yeah.
not like
Okay.
locked in. and I should not be anyone to make sporting analogies. I will not get this right in any
Well,
way.
you start getting
but,
people to sign in when they show up as to who gets to do that. If
I
you
mean,
don't.
I just watched the Bills and Steelers. That was like my extent of being a good family member, supporting the team. But I believe, like a coach in an athletic team would be responsive to the needs of the players, our coaches are being responsive as well. There's also a relationship part to this. We could speak very honestly about this, that there are some teachers who are more willing to work with a coach than others. There's also that a little bit of a push and pull, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just the reality of working with human beings. And so to put a percentage of you must work with adults 60% and kids with 40%, I think creates a very disingenuous system that coaches are now going to report. I was in grades, the 3 teachers in grades 3, I walked in, I checked the box, and yes, principal, I fulfilled my 60% this week. It's not a system that is very relationships based. And if we do it on the other side, certain percentage with kids, I'm worried that we're going to misrepresent the kids that need intervention, because that's an intervention model, if we're going to talk that way. And now we're going to get back to the 2013 results where we're pulling kids out, and now you're in intervention for life. You're a lifer. So there are downfalls to, I think, the locking coaches into you must spend X amount of your time with kids. So I do hear you, and I do believe there are coaching models out there like that. But
right. To be clear, I agree with not having that metric locked in. I think that's a good element of flexibility to this, and wanted to clarify that that was how it was working. So that was actually the easy question. May I ask a follow-on? So fun fact, this is what we do now. You mentioned that it's very relationship-based, and that's something that jumps out to me from both just being a parent, knowing parents, existing across the district, in general with this type of thing where you have, in any industry, in any field, something that is its effectiveness in the beginning is very based on the relationships of the individuals involved in the process. Before it becomes something that is fully systemic, before it becomes something that is fully accepted and fully just the way we do things when it's new, particularly. So the question, and again, not intended to be leading towards an answer, but really just a curiosity factor. When you have those situations where it is easier in some places to do this thing that is so well planned out on paper and is so well trained out by the coaches who are trying every day to do what they're doing, when they run into those challenges, what's the plan? When they run into those challenges where they're not able to be as effective as they can and should be based on the design of this particular program for whatever reasons in any individual classroom setting, what is the plan for the kids in that class who might just have to wait until they move on to a grade level where a teacher is more open to instruction? Maybe you can learn to read next year, and I know that's not the idea, but what is the workaround for that, for those kids, so that they aren't stuck just because, somebody didn't feel like getting coached that day?
So I just want to be careful about the language we're using at this board table.
Absolutely.
We're not making any kid wait till next year to read.
Okay. The question is intentional. The answer can be however you'd like to phrase it.
Well, I believe that we have to be careful with the words we speak into the universe. So we're not making any kid wait. Okay? I think that no matter what, every teacher is getting coaching support. I think there's a continuum to that, I think is the best way to represent that. Okay? And all teachers are getting professional learning. There are other, as Ms. Doyle is suggesting, coaching is not our only way to build capacity of teachers. So if it was the only investment, my answer to you is it's not a choice. Like, we're coming in, swing open the door, and coaches are here to, because that would be the only delivery. of opportunity to learn about curriculum and build capacity in high-quality instruction and learn about the science of reading and about various strategies and routines to use in mathematics. So I think that all teachers are exposed to great professional learning opportunities when you string together all the opportunities, right? So we've talked here in your short time about Wednesday releases. We've talked about summer opportunities. So when you string that together, I feel confident that our young people are getting access to refreshed and renewed curricula and the strategies that we're highlighting in HQI this year. So I think all of our students are getting access to that. But there is a good point where there may be more coaching presence in other classrooms, but we're working with humans, right? We're working with teachers who I think are developing. So I don't think that there's anyone that is, I am certain there is not one single teacher who's not getting coaching support. It's just there's a continuum of support, just like there are for students, right? So I wouldn't say that kids are not getting access to what we just enumerated. I think the teachers are actually the ones that can string together their opportunities and provide that for kids in a classroom.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Boynton?
So I like to bring the discussion of coaches back to the idea of the budget rather than looking at the model so in depth right now. And I think that we had a fabulous presentation tonight that really reinforced the value of having our instructional coaches, the context of how they came to be within our system, certainly the way they are touching and affecting the performance of our teachers, which in turn is affecting the performance of our students. I also know that when it comes to budget time, that there's talk about how these might be some of the more unnecessary positions. You've shown us very effectively tonight why it's great and positive thing to have these coaches. What if some of these coaches go away? What happens then?
I would have to make the case that they can't go away.
Why?
Because everything that was said tonight and in all the instructional highlights last April, I can't even just say, because of the last 10 minutes, I feel like we talk about coaches all the time. They're like critical to the work. If this board, if this administration, if this school community believes in the vision of the learner, high quality instruction, the equity framework and the relationships framework, if that is at the core of what we believe, then we would not be talking about the value of coaches anymore. They're critical to getting that into every classroom. We have 485 learning spaces and nearly 600 teachers. That doesn't happen in 4 professional days a year and 9 early release days. That happens, I know I'm getting into a little education right now, but the most critical part of learning happens when there is a student who gets what we call stuck. At point of difficulty is some of the most critical, deep learning we do as human beings. And we need to make sure that every teacher is equipped with every tool they can have to help students learn through point of difficulty. And a coach can do that, and a teacher can do that. And coaches are doing both, helping students and teachers. So somehow, I will own it, I have to be a better communicator. This whole thing that coaches don't impact kids, or coaches don't touch kids, we have to demystify that. And because they don't have children in front of them from 8:30 to 3:30 with a schedule and only one break, and barely enough time to run to the bathroom, right? Like, people feel that they are not, I don't know, carrying the weight, not as valuable, not as important. And we just had public comment on how valuable mental health support is. Nobody's talking about how many kids do counselors see. Counselors help teachers too. No one's asking for a counselor schedule. We just make an assumption that they impact kids. How about social workers? Should we talk about them? They don't have a schedule that we hand to them, and they have kids from 8:30 to 3:30. What's next? School psychologists? They test kids. They see small groups. They don't see, if we start to equate value of our staff members based on the number of kids that are in their caseload, it is a slippery slope. Because sometimes our staff members see smaller numbers of kids because it's specialized support, like social workers and school psychologists. So I'm with the coach who said, I'm here defending my job every year. I'm on a permanent record, on record permanently, that I support coaches. I believe they touch the lives of kids. I think they make a difference in the lives of teachers. And if we're serious about talent management and development, retention is when you're feeling supported in the classroom, in front of kids who are having behavior problems, who are having reading difficulties. If I'm in it alone and there's no coach to help me, you think that's going to attract people to Milford Public Schools? I should stop there.
Thank you. I hope that every city official who has to vote on this budget heard you speak just now.
Thank you, Ms. Boynton, for bringing it back to the budget discussion, because I did want to point out, I was grateful to hear in the presentation the mention that we've had coaches for a long time in Milford. There was also a point, excuse me, there was one point made when we increased the coaches that I want to point out now. They've been in the budget for a long time. We did not ever add FTEs to increase the coaching model. We had a shift of personnel so that we used
There was no budget impact.
no budget impact at all. We also heard the comment made during a workshop of the list that decreasing coaches was on the list last spring when we were discussing potential reductions for the nearly $2 million cut to the budget, reduction to the budget. So I just want to clarify that, for me at least, that was a laundry list of items for the board to consider, many of which we would never have considered, coaches I think being one of them. We would, me personally, I will never ever consider reducing coaches. I think they're integral to what we're doing. I think they're very valuable. But the purpose of that list was to just identify any of the things that we could look at, and I think it became very evident to the board that we'd have to really string together a whole bunch of things that would be hugely impactful in order to make up that amount of a reduction. So we landed on what was the, in our opinion, it was like a no-win. This is what we think we should do. That will have the least impact when you're looking at all the different programs that we had in front of us that would have had to go in order to make up that large of a cut. So the way I look at this is that if we were to reduce the number of coaches to have, we are going to reduce the amount of supports our teachers and students are getting by half, and that's just not acceptable to me. So I will not support any kind of a motion to reduce the coaches.
So Ms. Glenn, 2 items. Can I respond to that?
Yes.
In the proposed, I don't even want to use the word proposed, but the laundry list of potential cuts, we also had freshman sports and 6th grade world language.
Yes.
So if you're going to, mudsling on coaches, then let's put everything on the table. This list was not a value statement. This list was OMG $1.8 million cut.
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to not to close a school. So misusing that list to say we didn't really need coaches is misusing the list.
Correct.
And secondly, I want to be clear that the question proposed by the board on what savings would be found if we reduced each school by 2 coaches, I think that was in the Q&A list, which amounts to 16 FTEs. Is not the savings that I think people think. Because what you're doing is you're putting 16 coaches back in the classroom because of seniority, and you're reducing, am I right? The 16 newest hired elementary school teachers. Now, you all know that it's hard to get teachers right now. Pipeline's drying up. And questions like that and this kind of public comment and people talking about cutting teachers is very easily Googleable. I didn't say that word right, but you know what I mean. Right? So if I'm a teacher and I'm getting 2 or 3 offers, this is happening, right? Am I making up stories?
Correct. Yep.
I'm a teacher, I'm getting 2 or 3 offers. I'm likely going to Google the district. And right now, on record, is Milford Public Schools is talking about cutting coaches. And you know what that means? The newest people get cut. So if I'm going to be a teacher taking a new job with Milford, I'm low on the totem pole, and I get cut. So I realize we have to have these conversations, but just be cognizant that it's on public record. And people will read about that and make choices of where to work.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. First, I want to just put a disclaimer out there that I had a root canal yesterday, so if my voice is kind of strange or you hear the fact that I accidentally bit my tongue yesterday while it was numb, that's why it sounds weird. Just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming today. It was really, really encouraging and awesome to walk into the room and see how many people were in the audience. And it was really great to hear the stories and hear the experiences of both the educators and the parents. And that as I think we encourage our students to be, I endeavor to be a lifelong learner, and especially when it comes to education, I'm not an educator nor an expert, but like to listen to the stories and how it impacts people's real lives. And I would encourage folks here today and watching on TV or streaming that come out and tell stories more. Come to public comment. It is really refreshing and fulfilling to be on this side of the table and hearing your experiences. So that's kind of the preface, and hopefully, Dr. Kataya, it's a relatively softball and easy question for you to answer that I hope is simple, and you can take however long you want. But
not really trusting that disclaimer right now.
Yeah.
Let's do it over. It's fine.
But
too much influence over there.
But it's I just want to kind of pull it back. We've talked a lot about a lot of things over the last few days, and really appreciate your commitment to zero-based budgeting and making sure that what you put in the budget are things you actually feel like we really need to have. And so, and I know I've asked the question in different ways before, but if your concern about the budgetary impact was not paramount, are there other things, or if you won the lottery, as I've said it before, are there other things we could include in the budget that would further increase and enhance the educational opportunities for our students?
Yes, but I believe that would be irresponsible. I can't just say, hey guys, do you want to add another $500,000? I can give you a list, right? So any administrator in this room knows we always have a list of things we want to buy. Yes? Good leadership, yes, right? So my answer is yes, but I have a responsibility to plan that over time. So I've heard from parents, why didn't you include X? Why didn't you do, actually, I agree with some of the things that are being said out there. I'd like to roll all of our special up to a full-time. I'm in, but we need a plan to do that. And not just to add for the sake of adding. So yes, the answer is yes, I have things, but my best request is in front of you
Thank you.
for this year. I'm coming back for more.
Thank you.
I have a 5-year list, so, and they do too.
Other questions? Okay, so no more questions? We do have action on our agenda next, so are we ready to move to that agenda item? All right, so we'll move on to approval of the budget. So I just want to explain for new board members, when we vote, we typically will start with the main motion that's to adopt the budget as presented. All motions need a second before they can have discussion. And discussion can include amendments to make adjustments to the budget if a board member so desires, which that would also need a second. If an amendment is made and seconded, it is discussed and then we vote on that amendment. If an amendment passes, then the main motion continues with discussion as amended. If the amendment fails, then we go back to the original motion and continue on with that motion as presented. So just want to make sure everybody understands how motions and seconds and amendments work before we start, because it can get confusing. So, all right, Ms. Petrosky, start.
I'd like
things
to make
off.
a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the superintendent's proposed 2024-2025 budget as presented in the amount of $111,285,770 and directs the administration to transmit it to the mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith? Okay, discussion. Want to go first, Ms. Petrosky?
Yeah, I
Somebody
would
make that
actually.
motion.
I kind of want to reiterate what was said the other night. I think there was a lot of very thoughtful time and effort put into this budget. I am especially happy about some additional focus on the career pathways. I think that's been something that we've been talking about for a bit now. And you know, we've got a lot of kids who are more interested in that option that we really have very limited at the moment. So I was happy to see some of the monies towards that, some of the focus on that. And I think we had a lot of digging across multiple accounts, if you will, to find savings to help defray the cost. This was a thoughtful and responsible budget, and I am convinced that it is going to meet the needs of what we need to do for our kids this year. So I do thank you all for that hard work.
Ms. Preet?
I'd like to make an amendment to remove $712,800 from the proposed 24-25 budget to make the new budget for 24-25 $110,572,970, providing a 4.03% increase versus a 4.7 increase as proposed. This 4.03 is less than last year's 4.2 increase. The purpose is to reevaluate a part of HQI involving instructional coaches and reduce, not eradicate, the amount of staff dedicated to this, going from 4 per elementary, or 32 staff, to 2 per elementary, 16 staff. These positions can be considered to fill the expected retirements. This will provide confidence and show a good faith effort to the Board of that the Board of Education has looked for efficiencies in these difficult inflationary times, as everyone is doing more with less in their own personal and family budgets. While finding this efficiency, we can confidently say that we are still upholding and supporting the Board of Ed's vision, commitment, and goals, and main drivers of this budget, including salaries and benefits, specialized program for behavioral supports, clinical therapists and middle and high schools, special education services and transportation, building and grounds maintenance, and capital equipment replacements. This also maintains our goals of high-quality instruction, attracting and retaining new teachers in a competitive environment, and the wellness of students and staff. This will also realize ongoing savings in future years.
I should have asked for a second to the motion before we had your discussion.
Okay.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, point of clarification, can you please identify where you would like to take the $712,000 from?
From the salaries line of instructional coaches in each of 4 out of each of the 8.
I don't believe there is a salary line specifically for
Not just for
instructional
coaches, no.
coaches. The salary
So it'll
line
be
would
salary line?
Salary line.
Is that 111?
Teacher salary, I think.
Okay, yeah, teacher salary, yes.
1111.
And how much is the nominal?
Just the top line at 1111.
Reduced by 712.8. The new number would be here and a 4.03.
What is the total number again?
712,800? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And discussion has already happened from Ms. Preet. Do we have any other discussion? Ms. Doyle?
I absolutely disagree with the reductions proposed. I think we can't, it's, to sit here and having listened for the past 45 minutes to the teachers that stand before us and the instructional coaches and the educators who know what they're doing in the classroom, and to reduce it is honestly insulting, in my opinion. And it's not from a lack of finding efficiency or anything else, it's supporting our teachers and supporting our students. And we just came out of COVID, and really this is the first year where we can say we are back in the classroom 100% without having to worry about what's going on. And to turn around and say our teachers don't need support and our students don't need support in the elementary school where it's most important right now is really disheartening. It's sad, and I do not support it, and I will not support it. It needs to come from someone other than me, if that vote occurs.
Thank you. Ms. Muller?
So I also disagree with this particular cut. I think in addition to what we have just heard here tonight, as well as what we know, as well as the overall context of what this board for many years with the support of the community, the rest of the leadership in the city, the district itself, has been building towards creating a model of education, creating a vision of how that works for our students and for our staff and our teachers. Key elements of that are the high quality instruction, they are the vision of a learner, they are the lifelong learners that we are building, starting from the very, very youngest all the way up through. And I think that the way that it has been designed and the way that it is being implemented, perhaps for the first time now, given all the challenges that have come out of COVID and the timing and the coincidence of all of that, that the model of instructional coaches is finally in a place where it is ready to fully impact the teachers and the students across all of our levels. And to cut it off at the knees at this moment in time before that is allowed to occur is not only short-sighted, but it actually attempts to find efficiencies that will have to be paid for in other ways, in other programs, and in other budgets in future years, because we will be digging ourselves into a hole. So I think that it sounds good, it looks good, it makes everyone feel like they cut some money out of a big old budget, but I think it's very unwise at this point in time and is absolutely not something that I will be supporting.
Ms. Irby?
Thank you. I came in with a scenario in my head of a student that needed help, and she was struggling in class with one particular teacher. And after listening to the instructional coaches and the entire presentation, I was more comfortable with the fact that this student will get the help that she needs, with the help of the in-class teacher and the instructional coaches. And I felt with the way that it's structured right now, that student will not suffer. She'll get what she needs in the end. If we cut the coaches by, if I'm thinking properly the numbers you said, then that's almost virtually impossible by that significant of a cut. And I wouldn't want to put that on the teacher to try to catch up and try to grab her when there's so many other students in the classroom. So I don't think that would be a good cut at all at this time.
Ms. Boynton?
I
I think it's absolutely true that we are living in a time where life is really expensive. And many people are having to make choices of what they can and cannot afford. And I think part of the process in making those decisions is looking at what can we absolutely not sacrifice. And I think that when you not just think about what was said here tonight, but look at what this board and the Milford school system has been doing systematically over the past several years, is we have been building something that is not just going to be best for our students, but is going to be best for our greater community. And we have made these decisions with a lot of thought and care, and they were made and supported with scientific data behind it. It's not just us sitting around saying, hey, that's a heck of a good idea. Let's go forward with that. And, you know, we are at a time where I don't think that we can afford to make this kind of sacrifice. You know, I understand where the desire for a cut comes from, but, you know, this budget, I think it's been made very clear to us that this is based on need. This is not based on want and what would be nice to include, but what is absolutely necessary. And I think that to say, making a $700,000 cut to salaries does not support our vision, our mission, our goals, or HQI, and anything that we are really trying to accomplish. And it seems to me that while we need to be fiscally responsible, of course, that's our job, we also need to be the champions for the people who go out and do this really hard work every single day. So there is absolutely no way that I could support this cut. And I ask my colleagues who support it to really reconsider it. It's not in the best interest of our school system.
Other comments on the amendment? Ms. Petrosky?
I did want to address something specifically, I think, in the conversation, which was that this cut would not damage HQI or vision of the learner, and I vehemently disagree with that. I mean, if nothing else, tonight's conversation basically showed how critical these roles are to implementing high-quality instruction, making sure that we are meeting our vision of the learner, the relationship frameworks. We have 4 pillars that we have been building on, and I really think that those would be severely damaged by making this cut. And I think that I worry that, again, we're looking at a number, and because there's sort of this mystique about what an instructional coach does, which I think was pretty well addressed tonight, I don't think they're expendable. They are not extra. They are required for us to achieve what we need to achieve and to support our staff and our kids. You know, this would be a major step back in achieving the goals that we need to achieve and in supporting our kids. So I also am not in favor of making that cut, and I do appreciate that the idea of being fiscally responsive is a requirement of us as a board, but I think that this is irresponsible from a board standpoint of supporting our system.
Let me see if anybody else has, you've already spoken
I
once.
just want to ask a question.
Oh, yes.
It's more of a procedural question.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that I understand the role of the board versus Dr. Kataya's role. If we were to vote to cut $700,000, we as a board wouldn't say what positions would be cut, correct? We could just say the flat amount and ultimately it would be up to Dr. Kataya.
Well, in theory, theoretically, that's the design of our governance. However, if a board were to make a reduction with specific specification, I would take that as a mandate to the superintendent to make that reduction. So I think if we were to do this with the specificity that it was targeted towards instructional coaches, I think the superintendent would, it would behoove the superintendent to take that directive from her employers.
That sounds like a directive to me.
Yes, so I think.
So we can have that specificity in the budget?
Yes, yep, we could. I mean, the motion has been made that way, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion before we vote? Okay, all in favor? All in favor of the reduction that has been suggested in the amendment? Opposed?
Aye.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Megan Doyle?
No.
Scott Furmender? Tracy Irby?
No.
Tom Koba?
No.
Lauren Mahler?
No.
Una Petrosky?
No.
Christina Preet?
Yes.
Mike Smith?
Nay.
Cindy Wolf Boynton?
No.
Susan Glennon?
No.
Motion passes 8-2.
Motion fails.
Fails.
8-2. 8 no, 2 yes. So now we move back to the original motion, which was to adopt the budget as presented. We can move on with additional discussion on that motion. Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Kataya and the entire cabinet for the time and energy they've spent putting together this budget from starting at zero and going through, and understanding that each administrator and teacher needs to justify every single purchase in this budget and where it's going in the future. I also want to thank all the educators and parents who are in the room right now. It is, as Mr. Smith, very heartening to see everyone in the room. There are many familiar faces, and it's great to hear the instructional highlights and to see you at the football games, at the baseball games, at the softball games, on the playgrounds, wherever we can see people within the district and within the community. I firmly believe that every dollar spent in the budget comes back to the city of Milford. And it is an important aspect of our budget that it continues to invest in our community and to move the system forward towards the jobs and opportunities that exist in the future, and to train our students to be ready for what exists out there. We've had a number of discussions about jobs that we didn't even know existed last year, or even knowing it. And I've said it many times. I graduated from Milford Public Schools 20 years ago, and I think about when I graduated college and went to school and was a bio major. Why I became a bio major? No clue. At the end of the day, I thought I was going to go to medical school. I did not. And I wonder about the things that I became interested in and what I do now, and wonder if I was given different opportunities in this same district 20 years ago, what I would have done in the last decade instead of it. I'm thankful for every opportunity that has been given to me from that education, and I look forward to it. And I think this budget is obviously expensive. Everything is expensive, but we have to invest in our district. The majority of the increase is directly invested in our teachers. Nearly over 3% is on that. And then there's a high amount of money that's dedicated to investing in our grounds, in our buildings, which we've underinvested in times of low inflation. So it's time now to invest in it. And is it expensive? Yes. But every dollar comes back to it. When we are educating over 4,000 students and 1,000 employees that we are taking care of, it costs a lot of money to maintain that. So I fully support the budget and look forward to the next 2 year, the implementation, seeing it's implemented.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to again say thank you to everybody, and again, apologies if I pause, because I still definitely put my tongue yesterday. It's been really heartwarming experience and really honored and humbled to be part of this. As a graduate of Milford Public Schools and the parent of a second grader, I have a recollection of what I experienced as well as an insight into what she's experiencing now. And I think it does get to one of those themes that I think most people would agree, that you want to make the community better for the future generations. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of building on what I thought was a great education system when I was there, and it's becoming more and more impressive. I think that hopefully folks have appreciated or absorbed something that I have the last few weeks, where there is a commitment being good stewards of the public dollar and being good stewards of the public trust. And certainly a $111 million budget is more than I think I will ever have to grapple with personally. I think we've done a pretty good job of justifying why we're spending what we're spending. And so I think that there are just three quick themes and themes and some examples I want to really reinforce why I'm proud to support the budget as it is. And I think I'll also say something I've mentioned before, but I don't typically think of myself as someone who's been long out of the Milford Public School system until Dr. Kataya talks about the different visions and mission statements over the last few years, and I'm reminded that it was 20 years ago. She referenced a mission statement from 20 years ago and realized that was when I was at Foreign High. And so it's been longer than I thought. And so it is with that kind of perspective that I appreciate these conversations. And one of the things that I think I have noticed over the last 20 years is how our society and conversations have shifted about mental health, and how we're getting closer and closer to the idea that we're destigmatizing the need to seek mental health. In the same way that if you broke a bone, no one's going to look at you funny if you see a doctor. People are going to look at you funny if you don't see a doctor. If you're struggling with something personally and mentally, it is important to provide the resources so that students have those. And it's one of the reasons why for the last 14 years I've been proud to ride on Folks on Spokes and work with Bridges, and really excited that we were able to partner with Bridges. Bridges were able to find some grant dollars to start up the program, and now with hopefully if this passes, we can bring the resources of those Bridges clinicians to every elementary and high school in our community. So if folks are in need, they will have services right there. I also really appreciate the investment we're making in middle school and bringing ASL to them, because it's a really exciting thing. It also ties into one of the things I want to continue to have the conversation about, so long as I'm privileged enough to be on this board and in this part of making sure our students have opportunities to be successful, whether they're on a college track or a VOTEC track or a military track or a career track. The fact that we're talking about introducing ASL in middle school and then maybe hopefully in high school, even just today I looked it up on ZipRecruiter. Maybe some of you have also been in similar meetings as I have, where they can't start the meeting until there's an ASL translator in front of the room. ZipRecruiter, if you're looking at it, the 25th to the 75th percentile of someone who's an ASL translator, they make $47,000 to $65,000 a year, and it's just a licensure. You don't need to go to get to, that's one of those other alternative career tracks where you can actually do a good job providing for your family, and having those kind of conversations and opportunities for our students is one of the things that I feel pretty passionate about, so I'm happy it's in this budget. And then the last thing I would just like to highlight is in the conversations over the years, I find it interesting that Milford as a community has decided that the latest school we built and wanted to build was Foreign High in 1973. So as a decision we made as a community, having the newest school be built half a century ago, that obviously requires renovations and upkeep and a lot of facilities. And I think that we've heard some tonight, and Dr. Kataya, I really appreciate her commitment to being a good financial steward and making sure that you can justify everything. But what we heard last week is that while there are $723.5 thousand of requested facility upgrades in this budget, there's a list of $8.7 million. And so we're doing a pretty good job of making do with what we have, and especially looking at what we have as a school system and district. There are only 3 schools whose want list is less than $100,000. We have 2 high schools Law, who has over $1 million of requests, including $30,000 for an AC, heater AC for the media center, and $4 million for Foreign High. And as a graduate of Foreign High, I do recall when, it's probably junior or senior year, the floor between one of the halls and the stairways, I think it was in Blue Hall, there was some caution tape that was down on the floor because there was like a 1/4-inch gap so kids wouldn't step on it, because the wisdom back in the 70s was build a high school in a swamp. Right? So we have real challenges that we grapple with. And Foreign has one of the items on the request list is $750,000 for a backup chiller, because as we learned last week, if the original chiller goes down and we're stuck in a supply chain issue conundrum like we've all experienced the last few years, we might be in a position where we have to close the school down for weeks or months until we can get that part from who knows where. And so the things that we're not funding in this budget are real needs if we want to continue to strive to provide an excellent education system for our students. And we've prioritized pretty well in the administration. I give you a lot of credit and very happy and that you've detailed very much of how you've done that. And so it is, I just want to say I'm thankful and appreciative of being here. I understand that 4.7% increase might be a lot from some objective places, but it's not when you put it in the context of the world we're living in now, where we've all seen the increase in prices. Just last year, February of last year's monthly inflation rate was 5.1%. And so we've done a lot to try and keep this manageable. We've done a lot to continue to invest in our education system. And I do look at it as an investment, because it is one of those places where we invest in our students, we invest in our faculty and our teachers and staff to provide them the resources to attract and retain talent, which then becomes a desirable place for businesses to locate. And when businesses locate here, it shifts the burden so it's not all on taxpayers, not all on residents to pay for the services we love, both the education and not. And so I really appreciate and commend the members of the board, the members of the administration, and also the members of the public, especially for coming out tonight. And I really thank you, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to vote when it's time to support the budget. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
So I would like to concur with so much of what my colleagues have already said and why they're voting yes for this budget. And I think that Mr. Smith's point about the number of things, such as the chiller at Foreign High School, that are really very important for our system but are not included in this budget, are things that we have to pay attention to. You know, Dr. Kataya responded to Mr. Smith's question earlier, you know, if you could add more money, what would you add? And she said, no, I couldn't add more money because that wouldn't be responsible, right? This budget includes the essentials. And I think when you look historically at where we've been and what's being asked for now, it's extremely reasonable and it's extremely justifiable. You know, our children, I don't think they've ever been needier, right? With their social, emotional needs, mental health crises, you know, to help meet their needs, we need to have adequate staff. Also, the idea of facilities projects. You know, we have upgrades proposed in this budget that we have put off in past years that just can't be put off again. We also have security upgrades in this budget that we had to defer last year. And we can't defer those because certainly there is nothing that is more important than the safety of our children. So they have to be made. You know, one of the things that I like to think about and I talk about sometime is the idea that we've labeled ourselves progressive school district, right? And there's a myth that progressive has something to do with politics. But being a progressive school district has nothing to do with politics, right? It's what is our take on how we educate our students. And it's really focused on the idea that we don't want our students to be passive learners. We want to teach them to be engaged and to be critical thinkers and to be able to be self-learners as well. And, you know, this budget, and not just the staff it includes, but also the programming and the equipment, you know, really is taking us to that next step of providing that kind of progressive, encouraging, engaging learning environment that I think our students just desperately need, not only for them to become their best selves, for us to help meet them where they are and help get them to where they need to be, but also to, move us forward. It's a crazy world that we live in that's moving so fast. And it's moving forward, in a snap every second. And we have to help our kids moving forward as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf-Boynton. Other comments? Ms. Mahler?
So, echoing so many things that colleagues have said, and knowing that, as I have repeatedly been saying for several weeks, I've been here for what is probably 2 hot minutes now. So thank you all for that. I found myself last spring happily tooling along as the parent of elementary school students, minding my own business, and more or less. And then this whole budget incident happened last spring, and realized what a need there was for people to really be involved and to have their voices heard, and to not only be able to provide ways for people to have their voices heard because that matters, but to find ways to get information and to link that up with people so they know what's going on. And so they understand what's happening and expectations and what is being done. Everyone's plugged in so many different ways through their own lens and their own families and their own experiences with the district and what's happening. And it has been such a privilege to get to jump into the deep end and to get to sit behind this fancy little black curtain here on the front of the table, which thank goodness is up here tonight. But with the random snow gear and things that are piled under here. But I come from a place of spending a lot of time on the professional side of my life dealing with budgets and dealing with people talking about budget efficiencies and budget savings and what really matters and what doesn't matter in a lot of different contexts in life and other places. And I am very, very supportive of and very, very focused on budgets that matter, budgets that do things, budgets that spend efficiently, budgets that spend wisely, budgets that support a thing, not just themselves, budgets that aren't just money to go into accounts to be spent where it shall be, but that actually have thinking and purpose behind them. And one of the most important things that I have learned in over 20 years of playing in this kind of a space is that a budget is never a number. It's never a series of numbers. It's never a series of line items. It represents programs, and that in turn represents people. Behind every line item on here, behind whatever program it represents, whether it's a fraction of an FTE, whether it's ASL in the middle school, whatever that may be, it's people behind it. And it's not just kids. It's kids and family, and it's teachers, and it's staff, and it's an entire community. And one of the things that to me makes plugging into a community and being involved in this way that made this an important thing for me to want to be a part of and to feel so honored to be a part of now is that there is nothing else across a budget that an entire community looks at that impacts a broader stretch of that community, start to finish, A to Z. Everyone is touched by the school system. Whether they realize it or not, whether they have kids in it or not, A, you're paying into it, so welcome, but it actually impacts everything that shapes who we are as a community. It's not just the kids. It's not just the teachers who teach in it, the staff who work in it. It impacts whether or not businesses want to come here and whether or not they want to grow here and put down their roots here and be a part of this community and create jobs. It determines whether or not families want to move here. All the decisions that this board and that this administration and that this city has supported over the last few years have shifted the needle so far towards making Milford a destination of choice for families and kids because they want to bring their kids here, because they see what's happening and they see the quality and they see the trajectory. And all of that starts with these numbers. All of that starts with the people who are implementing it across the board. We talked about some tonight. There's a million others that we could talk about and that deserve the recognition and the shout out and probably spend a lot of time very often on a Monday through Friday and on a weekend feeling like no one notices what they're doing, but we do. And we support it because we continue to enable it and enhance it and put together numbers and programs that allow you to do what you do so that you can impact our kids. And not just our kids, but our community. And when people start talking about making cuts from this line or that line, when you look at a budget like this, that is very intentionally done, and it's very rare for a budget of this size to be compiled this way. Trust me on that, very rare. But to start from a place where every single dollar is justified and matters and has gone to something important, has gone to creating and expanding opportunities for students, to creating and expanding opportunities for staff, both personally and professionally, has gone to ensuring that our facilities, while they may be old as get out, they are being maintained and they are being kept up and they are being created and turned into the learning spaces that wrap around all of the programming and the teaching and the learning that we are striving towards. And they support that. It all goes together. You can't have one without the other. All of the different enhancements and things that are increased in here, they feel like a lot when you look at the paper. But when you look behind the paper and you look behind the numbers and you see the people and the programs and the things that are being enabled by these numbers, to cut from that at this point with the impact that a district, that a school system has on a community like Milford, is to not only cut from the budget, pat yourself on the back, we saved some money today, but it's to actually make a cut that changes the trajectory of the future of our community. It changes the way that we are building a foundational level of our community through our school district that enables a vision of what Milford can and should and will be, that we are all working towards together in our own different ways. And this is a way that does that, that stretches an impact that is much broader than almost any other piece of our budget and what we do. So when we talk about things being short-sighted, they make sense in the moment, perhaps, but when it comes to the long run and it comes to the future of our kids and it comes to the future of our community, those are the kinds of cuts that actually end up costing us more in the long run. They take us longer to get where we all want to go together. So this budget, built this way with the things that are in it, are 100% in support of the vision that I believe in for Milford, that I believe in for our community, and that is why I live here with my family. This is a community of choice for me. Many years ago, not as many as some of y'all, but a while. And I thank you all for being a part of that, because in all the different ways that you have shown up, just being in this room, I counted 54 heads a while ago, and there are more people that have come in the door. So I like numbers. And y'all are the people behind those numbers. So thank you for what you're doing. Please tell your colleagues, your neighbors, your friends that we appreciate them too. And I look forward to supporting this budget and working in whatever way possible with you as the community to make sure that this is what we are able to hand you to enact when we get to next year. So thank you again for letting me be here to do this.
Other comments? Mr. Koba?
I'll try not to be too repetitive for what everybody else said, but I'll start by saying I'm very strongly in favor of the budget as is. And kind of like echoing what Lauren said, I hate to say it, but I've been working and planning and approving budgets for 40 some odd years. And the budget that Dr. Kataya and her team put together was awesome. It was very easy to work with, somebody coming in from the outside. You know, everything was justified. I thought it was a great job. It made my life easy and efficient to review it, especially with the questions that we followed up with. I think in general, it's really a progression off of previous year's budgets, keeping down the path of HQI and all the visions and goals. I think everything in there is necessary that you had, including, you know, coaches and counselors. There's a responsible level, as Mike said, of building improvements and infrastructure, teaching infrastructure, needed equipment and furniture. I think all that was necessary. And I think in general, it's just, you know, I thought everything was well justified. Also, you know, a superb school system makes Milford a better place to live and draws people into our town, at least the economic development. Now, that's been said before, but that's worth repeating. And just in general, you know, if you look at, COVID came along, we had no choice, and we had a huge setback because of it. Now that we're back on a progression, I don't see a reason to have a self-inflicted setback by cutting things unnecessarily. So in general, I'm just totally, I'm looking forward to approving this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Koba. Any other comments? Yep, Ms. Irby, yep.
Sorry. I too am in support of the budget, mainly because this budget doesn't stop any of the progress that has been made. I like to think that we're going forward in HQI and supporting our students. And I like in order to support our students, we also have to have really strong teachers and staff. So working on diversity and inclusion and getting those extra teachers from the teaching program, came under the program, to build the, I'm sorry about all the coughing. Get through it. I think it's very important to just shore up what we already have and not stop the progress that we've been making. And so I'm in support of the budget as is, so that, as everyone has said, we can make Milford as, I'm trying to think of a good word, a great place for both teachers, students, and everyone to work, to grow, to just simply enjoy being here in the environment that we have.
Yes. Okay, so I also am in support of the budget that's been presented. Me personally, I appreciate the planful way that Dr. Kutaya calibrates her budgets from year to year in an effort to actually be sensitive to the fiscal climate. I think we could all, realistically, we all know that with increasing student needs, contractual responsibilities, mandates, and the desire to be a good employer who supports its staff on top of inflation and the increased cost of doing business, this budget easily could have been larger than it is. In the end, we need to do what's right for kids, and we need to support our staff. That's the bottom line for me. I believe our community has demonstrated in many different ways that it supports the work being done in Milford Public Schools, and it's work that I am very proud of. The budget does include reductions and efficiencies, so we did do that work, and then it provides needed funds for increased attention to our infrastructure and technology, and it honors our commitments to the core instructional program, athletics, the arts, and so much more in order to continue moving the district forward, which for me is the bottom line. I want to see us continue to move forward. So with that said, why don't we just have a roll call vote from the beginning, Ms. Griffin?
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmander,
I don't think we heard you, Mr. Commander.
No.
oh, sorry. Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet, Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton,
Yes.
Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-2.
Motion passes 8-2. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of our agenda this evening, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Your second?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Mahler. Any opposition to adjourning at 8:48? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.